There are certain things a woman can say that should make you stop everything and seriously reconsider whether you should keep her in your life. That's exactly what we're talking about today. 5 phrases that are not just red flags, they're full-blown sirens. If a woman tells you any of these things, don't argue, don't beg, and definitely don't try to prove your worth. Just leave. You owe that to yourself as a man. Welcome back to Jillian Speaks, where we break down what most men overlook in the name of love, validation, and approval. Because the truth is, too many men are walking around with the emotional version of handcuffs chained to women who don't respect them, don't value them, and sometimes don't even like them. See, some women won't directly disrespect you with their actions at first. They'll do it with their words. A sentence here, a phrase there, and before you know it, you're accepting things no man should ever tolerate. Why? Because you were too focused on making it work, on not being too sensitive, or on proving you're a good guy. Let's be real. A woman who respects you will never speak to you in a way that threatens your dignity. And if you ignore that truth, you're signing up for emotional confusion, mental chaos, and spiritual decay. That's not what a man of substance accepts. This video isn't about bashing women. It's about protecting men. It's about giving you the clarity to spot the signs early before you invest your time, your energy, or worse, your purpose. These phrases might sound subtle, even harmless, but they reveal a mindset you should never try to fix or tolerate. So, if you're serious about becoming a stronger, smarter, and more respected man in your relationships, pay close attention because what she says tells you everything you need to know. But I don't owe you anything. This is one of the most dangerous sentences a woman can say to a man in a relationship. And the reason is simple. It reveals a mindset that's completely disconnected from mutual respect. Now, don't get it twisted. No one owes anyone in the sense of being forced to do things against their will. But in a relationship, there's an unspoken agreement. We both give, we both contribute, we both care. So when a woman says, I don't owe you anything, she's not just making a casual statement. She's telling you she feels no sense of responsibility toward you. No emotional accountability, no consideration, nothing. And if you don't leave when she says it, you're telling her that kind of selfishness is okay. See, that phrase usually doesn't show up in the beginning. It shows up after she's gotten what she wants, attention, gifts, validation, support, whatever it may be. And once you express a boundary or an expectation, she drops the line. Why? Because in her mind, you're disposable. Your effort is one-sided. She's not in it to build, she's in it to benefit. Now let me break this down with a simple scenario. Marcus and Tasha had been dating for 6 months. Marcus was always there. He helped Tasha pay her car note when she was behind, gave her emotional support when she had issues at work, and constantly showed her she mattered. But one night, he asked her if she could start being more intentional with her communication. He told her he felt like he was always the one initiating everything, and he wanted to feel a little more prioritized. Tasha didn't flinch. She looked at him, rolled her eyes, and said, I don't owe you anything, Marcus. I didn't ask you to do all that. Right there, Marcus had a choice. He could ignore that statement, keep investing, and hope it got better, or he could recognize the truth. He was giving to someone who saw his effort as optional and his emotions as irrelevant. If a woman tells you she doesn't owe you anything, don't explain, don't defend, and don't debate. Walk away, because a woman who values you won't see your feelings as demands. She'll see them as opportunities to grow with you. She won't weaponize your effort or throw it in your face. She'll meet it with appreciation and reciprocity. Men need to stop negotiating with women who see relationships as one-way streets. You deserve better. Period. 2, that's just how I am. When a woman tells you, that's just how I am, she's waving a giant red flag. And most men miss it. On the surface, it sounds harmless, even kind of honest. But underneath, it's a statement loaded with entitlement, resistance, and emotional immaturity. This phrase is used to avoid responsibility. It's a built-in excuse for bad behavior, poor communication, or a lack of emotional control. And instead of reflecting or working on those traits, she shuts the door on accountability with those 5 simple words. Let's make this very clear. Growth is a requirement in any healthy relationship. And anyone who refuses to grow is already telling you the relationship has limits, limits that will always fall on you. Why? Because if she doesn't change, then you're the one forced to adjust, tolerate, or suffer in silence. This kind of woman will constantly justify disrespect, coldness, jealousy, rudeness, or manipulation by acting like it's part of her personality. And if you bring it up, she'll act like you're attacking her identity instead of addressing the behavior. That's not a woman who wants partnership. That's someone who wants submission. She doesn't want a man who speaks up. She wants someone who lets her run unchecked. You'll notice that this phrase always shows up when she's being challenged. The moment you say, hey, this doesn't sit right with me, or I feel like that crossed a line, she hits back with, that's just how I am, which translates to, you don't get to expect better from me. And once a man accepts that kind of logic, he's finished. Because now she knows she doesn't have to evolve. He'll stay anyway. She can keep being cold, keep being reckless with her words, and still keep the relationship. That dynamic always ends with the man losing his self-worth, trying harder to fix what was never his responsibility to fix in the first place. Here's the truth. You don't want a woman who's perfect. You want a woman who's willing to grow, reflect, and take ownership. The moment she tells you growth is off the table, the relationship is already doomed. You're not her therapist, her emotional punching bag, or her test dummy. You're a man with standards, and if a woman isn't willing to rise to meet them, let her go fast. Because the longer you stay, the more you'll shrink, the more you'll second-guess yourself, and the more she'll believe that her behavior doesn't need to change because you stayed. A woman who says, that's just how I am, isn't showing strength. She's showing you the ceiling of the relationship. And if you're serious about becoming the kind of man who commands respect, you walk away when you hear it. 3, I want a man who can handle me. When a woman says, I want a man who can handle me, you might think it's some sort of challenge or compliment, but in reality, it's a red flag. This statement isn't about you being strong enough or capable of taking on challenges. It's about her testing your patience and pushing your boundaries to see how much she can get away with. First things first. Real strength isn't about handling anyone. It's about understanding, communicating, and meeting each other's needs in a balanced, respectful way. If she's saying this to you, it usually means she expects you to put up with behavior that's disrespectful, manipulative, or overly dramatic under the guise of her being strong or independent. Women who use this line often feel entitled to act however they want, expecting you to just accept it. They want a partner who won't back down, who will tolerate their mood swings, tests, or unpredictable behavior. But here's the catch. This isn't about testing your strength. It's about testing your limits. And if you let it slide, if you let her push and push until you're tolerating poor behavior, you're letting her take the lead in an unhealthy dynamic. The truth is, she's not looking for a strong man. She's looking for a man who will bend to her whims. She might be attractive or even charming, but at the core, what she's doing is creating an environment where she can get away with more. She wants someone who doesn't push back, who doesn't challenge her when she steps out of line, and that's not healthy for either of you. Here's the thing. A man who truly handles things doesn't tolerate bad behavior. He knows when to lead and when to step back. He understands the value of respect and healthy communication. He doesn't play games where he lets someone walk all over him just because they think they're tough or independent. Instead, he knows his worth and expects to be treated with the same respect he gives. If she keeps pushing you with this line, you've got to ask yourself, is this the kind of woman you want in your life? One who thinks she can get away with emotional manipulation, testing your limits, and turning your relationship into some sort of endurance race. A real man knows when to walk away from these situations. He doesn't tolerate toxicity disguised as strength. He understands that mutual respect is the foundation of a real healthy relationship, and he won't settle for anything less. So the next time a woman says, I want a man who can handle me, take it as a sign that she's not ready for a real balanced connection. Don't play her game. Walk away, because a man who's truly strong isn't afraid to walk away from disrespect. For you're too emotional. When a woman looks you in the eye and says you're too emotional, she's not giving feedback. She's trying to flip the script. She's trying to take your strength, your ability to express yourself, be honest, and stand firm and reframe it as weakness. And if you fall for that, she'll use it every single time you speak up. Let's get one thing straight. There's a difference between being emotional and being expressive. As a man, you're allowed to speak when something doesn't sit right. You're allowed to have standards, to show frustration, to draw lines. That's not emotional, that's leadership. But the moment a woman feels threatened by that strength, she might throw that line at you to shut you down. You're too emotional is often said when you finally call something out. Maybe you're tired of being disrespected. Maybe you're done with the double standards. Maybe you're just expressing how something made you feel. And instead of hearing you out, she hits you with that phrase. What she's really saying is, I don't want to be held accountable, so I'll make it about your emotions instead. It's a power move. If she can make you second guess your tone, your delivery, or your reaction, she never has to deal with the actual issue. And now, instead of addressing the disrespect, you're defending yourself. You're questioning your masculinity. You're asking, am I being too soft? But that's the trap. That's the manipulation. And if you don't catch it, you start losing confidence every time you speak up. This kind of woman expects you to stay silent, to never complain, to absorb everything she dishes out and call it being strong. But real strength isn't silence, it's clarity. And clarity means calling things out when they're off. Now, if you're constantly out of control, shouting, blaming, or reacting emotionally to everything, then sure, that's a problem. But most men aren't doing that. Most men bottle things up for too long and then get labeled too emotional the moment they open their mouth. It's a double standard. And if she's using that label against you, she's not looking for a partner. She's looking for a silent servant. Masculine energy isn't about being emotionless. It's about control, focus, and standing on your values. If you're calmly expressing yourself and she throws the word emotional at you to shut you up, that's a sign she's not ready for a real man. She's only comfortable as long as you're uncomfortable. And let's be honest, any woman who uses your voice against you doesn't deserve your presence. You don't need to explain your masculinity. You don't need to defend your emotional awareness. You need to stop engaging with women who twist your strength into something negative. If you're too emotional becomes her way of avoiding accountability, let that be the last time you try to explain yourself. Walk away with your head up always. 5. You're lucky to have me. When a woman tells you, you're lucky to have me, you need to understand what's really being said because it's not a compliment. It's a warning. It tells you exactly how she sees herself and how little she values you. This kind of statement isn't rooted in gratitude or mutual respect. It's rooted in arrogance. It's the belief that she's the prize and you're just fortunate to be in her presence. And the moment you accept that, you start playing beneath her. You start proving your worth, trying to maintain her attention instead of owning your position as a man with value. A healthy woman doesn't need to remind you of her worth. Her presence speaks for itself. She adds value, supports your vision, respects your leadership, and trusts the man you are. She doesn't throw lines like, "You're lucky to have me," unless she's trying to create imbalance, and that imbalance is all about control. Let's say you've been doing your part. You work hard, you lead well, you show up consistently, but because she's attractive or because she has options, she starts dropping hints that you should be grateful just to be with her. That's not confidence. That's manipulation in disguise. It's her way of keeping the power dynamic tilted in her favor. So you stay chasing and she stays distant. It's also a defense mechanism. Sometimes women use this phrase to distract from the fact that they're not bringing much to the table. Instead of reflecting on what they offer, they highlight your good luck as if being with them is a favor. That's not partnership, it's ego. Now, here's the thing. You should absolutely be with someone you value, but that goes both ways. If you're showing up with your purpose, your principles, and your presence, then she's lucky too. And if she can't say that, if she truly believes you're beneath her, that's a relationship built on imbalance, and it won't last. One-sided admiration always turns into silent resentment. So the next time you hear, "You're lucky to have me," pause. Look at what she actually brings to your life. And if it's all attitude and no substance, you already know what to do. A real man doesn't chase women who think they're doing him a favor. He attracts women who recognize mutual value and act like it. 6. You're insecure for thinking that. When a woman tells you you're insecure for thinking that, it's time to stop and really reflect on what's going on. The truth is, most men are too quick to let this slide because they're worried about being labeled as insecure. But here's the harsh reality. She's trying to manipulate your perception of yourself. We've all heard it at some point. You raise a valid concern, question something in the relationship, or express how a certain situation makes you feel. Instead of addressing the issue, she deflects by making it about your insecurities. This is a classic move designed to shut you down, make you feel small, and invalidate your feelings. And far too many men fall for it. The real issue here isn't your insecurity. It's her refusal to engage with the actual problem. When you're faced with this kind of manipulation, it's important to wake up. Don't let her twist the narrative. If you're having a valid concern, don't let her gaslight you into thinking you're insecure for bringing it up. You're not insecure for wanting clarity, for wanting respect, for wanting honesty. Now let's be real. Some of you are insecure, you know it. You let your emotions drive you, and that can make you seem weak, uncertain, or overly dependent. But that's on you. If you let this type of criticism affect you too much, it's because you're not confident in yourself. Take responsibility for that. Insecurity comes from a lack of self-assurance. And if you've let that creep into your behavior, it's time to make a change. Build your confidence, focus on your mission, and stop letting outside opinions dictate your worth. But let's be clear, this particular phrase isn't about your real insecurities. It's a tactic to manipulate you. When she says you're insecure, she's playing on your fears of being inadequate. She's making you question your own thoughts and feelings, putting the blame back on you when the real issue lies with her behavior. The real question is, why are you letting her manipulate your emotions? Why are you allowing someone to play on your vulnerabilities and make you doubt yourself? When you hear you're insecure in response to a legitimate concern, it's time to walk away. Men, stop putting up with this nonsense. If your concerns aren't being taken seriously, start respecting yourself more than that. Stop waiting around for her to validate your feelings and stop letting her make you feel small. This is on you. Build yourself up. Get emotionally strong. Recognize manipulation when you see it. You're not insecure for thinking something's off. You're insecure for letting someone else control how you feel. Don't fall into the trap. Stand firm, communicate clearly, and walk away from emotional games. 7. If you really loved me, you would. There's one phrase that should immediately raise a red flag in your mind. If you really loved me, you would. This is the ultimate emotional manipulation. And let's be honest, too many men fall into this trap. What she's really saying is, I want you to do something for me, and if you don't, it means you don't love me. It's an unfair, guilt-inducing tactic designed to get you to act in a way that benefits her, no matter how unreasonable the request is. And the most dangerous part, it works. Think about it. She's putting your love for her on trial. She's not asking for something because it's reasonable or even fair. She's demanding something in a way that makes you feel like a bad person if you don't comply. It's a power play. If you really loved her, you wouldn't question the request, no matter how it affects you. Now, let's break this down. Real love is about mutual respect and understanding, not about one person using emotional blackmail to get their way. When someone truly loves you, they don't need to throw your feelings back at you as leverage. They communicate openly, honestly, and respectfully. But when she says, if you really loved me, she's not operating from a place of love. She's trying to control the situation by manipulating your emotions. Men, you need to wake up. Love is not about pleasing someone at the expense of your own well-being or principles. If you find yourself constantly bending over backward to meet her demands just to prove your love, you're setting yourself up for failure. This isn't love. This is a toxic dynamic where she gets to call the shots and you're left questioning your own feelings, actions, and boundaries. This phrase is also a sign that she's not taking responsibility for her own emotions or actions. Instead of finding ways to communicate her needs clearly or make reasonable requests, She's shifting the responsibility onto you, making her happiness conditional on your behavior. And that's not a healthy foundation for any relationship. The problem is that too many men are afraid of being labeled as selfish or uncaring. So they give in to these demands, hoping it will keep the peace. But that's not real peace. It's submission. You're losing yourself, your dignity, and your emotional autonomy. Every time you accept these unfair terms, here's the reality. A woman who truly loves you doesn't need to manipulate your actions with guilt trips. She respects your boundaries, appreciates your sacrifices, and values your feelings. If you're in a relationship where every request is framed as a test of your love, you're not in a partnership. You're in an unhealthy dynamic that will only drain you in the long run. So the next time you hear, if you really loved me, you would stop, pause, evaluate the situation. Real love doesn't use manipulation as a tool. If the relationship feels like a constant cycle of emotional demands and guilt, it's time to step back. Don't fall for it. Protect your peace, your boundaries, and your self-respect. Because the moment you start accepting this kind of manipulation is the moment you lose yourself in the process. Let's get real for a second. Most men are too comfortable with unhealthy relationships because they're afraid of being alone. Too many of you settle for toxic situations because you're terrified of being labeled as cold or selfish. But here's the truth. You're only losing yourself by accepting poor treatment. When you let someone manipulate your emotions, disrespect your boundaries, or guilt trip you into doing things you're uncomfortable with, you're the one who ends up suffering. The reality is being alone is far better than being stuck in a toxic relationship. It's better to focus on yourself, grow stronger, and build the life you deserve than to constantly sacrifice your happiness for someone who doesn't appreciate you. Being a man means taking control of your life, your choices, and your emotional well-being. If a woman is throwing these phrases at you, it's time to walk away. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever heard any of these phrases in your relationship? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I read every single one, and I'm here to connect with you. You're not alone in this journey. Let's build a community where we can share, learn, and grow together. So don't hesitate to reach out, share your story, and let's create a real connection. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.